Biden just approved the Willow Project with 92% of what ConocoPhillips originally wanted. Millions of young people, millions, asked him not to do this. Please don't do this for the sake of our economy, for the climate emergency, and for indigenous sovereignty. And he just said, I don't care, I'm gonna do it anyways and give ConocoPhillips almost everything they wanted. And hey, I'm gonna also slap some protections for Alaskan lands, but I'm gonna allow current leases of extraction to continue. Let me be clear, young people are aligned with a livable planet. And if he thinks that we're gonna stop at Willow, he is sadly mistaken. We want all coal, oil, and gas extraction in this country to stop. We want clean wind and solar power. We want trains, walkable cities, and we will create it. Because Willow is the start of a movement. Biden just slapped young people in the face. This is not the last he's heard from us. Because I want to be 30 and live in a world that I can recognize. Hang in there, guys. I'm feeling all the emotions you're feeling too, I promise.
That was 20-year-old climate activist and acting executive director for Gen Z for Change, Elise Joshi, in response to Joe Biden approving the environmentally harmful Willow Project, a project which has, unsurprisingly, been condemned by environmentalists. Now you may be thinking, what in the world is the Willow Project? Well, a couple of articles from Common Dreams do a good job of explaining it, with the first one titled, Biden denounced for appalling approval of Willow Oil Project. Here are a few snippets from the article. Apologies in advance if I mispronounce any of the names in the article. U.S. President Joe Biden on Monday green-lighted a massive oil drilling project on federal land in Alaska, eliciting outrage from climate advocates. Progressives sought for months to dissuade Biden from approving ConocoPhillips' $8 billion Willow Project, noting that it could enable the production of more than 600 million barrels of crude over 30 years. If all that oil is burned, roughly 280 million metric tons of heat-trapping carbon dioxide emissions will be spewed into the atmosphere at a time when United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres warns that the planet is reaching a point of no return. There is simply no justification for President Biden's decision to approve a massive new oil drilling scheme that will lead to decades of air and climate pollution, Food and Water Watch Executive Director Winona Houter said in a statement. This decision is part of a disturbing and disappointing trend with this White House, Houter continued. President Biden refuses to take the necessary actions to rein in climate catastrophe while issuing rhetoric that professes concern for the existential threat that we all face. He cannot have it both ways. Promoting clean energy development is meaningless if we continue to allow corporations to plunder and pollute as they wish. The second Common Dreams article that does a good job explaining the Willow Project is titled, Green Groups Vow Fight After Biden Climate Betrayal. Here are a few snippets from the article. Again, apologies in advance if I mispronounce any of the names in the article. Following his administration's Monday morning approval of the Willow Oil Drilling Project, environmental justice advocates slammed U.S. President Joe Biden for betraying the voters who sent him to the White House and vowed to do everything in their power to stop ConocoPhillips from proceeding with its climate-wrecking venture on federal land in Alaska's North Slope. President Biden's decision to move forward with the Willow Project abandons the millions of young people who overwhelmingly came together to demand he stop the project and protect our futures, Sunrise Movement Executive Director Varshini Prakash said in a statement. Young voters overwhelmingly opposed to expanding fossil fuel extraction played a key role in securing Biden's 2020 victory and in minimizing the Democratic Party's losses in the 2022 midterms. On the campaign trail in 2020, then-candidate Biden committed to end new oil and gas drilling on public lands and waters, said Prakash. Today's announcement flies in the face of that promise. Instead of sticking to his own goals and listening to the millions of young people who carried the party for the last 3 cycles, President Biden is letting the fossil fuel industry have their way. Biden has again broken his campaign promise to stop oil and gas drilling on federal lands and is approving new drilling at a faster rate than the Trump administration, said Rosenbluth. The Willow Project would be a colossal source of climate pollution, emitting a whopping 278 million metric tons over the next 3 decades, equivalent to the annual emissions of 1/3 of all remaining U.S. coal plants. The United States has no claim to international climate leadership if it's approving deadly new fossil fuel projects that could operate for decades, Rosenbluth asserted. It's time for the Biden administration to stop investing in disaster and instead invest in a just transition to reliable, affordable, and renewable energy for all. Sonia Akivak, Social Outreach Coordinator for Sovereign Inupiat for a Living Arctic, which organized a letter of opposition to the Willow Project, signed by more than 3 dozen indigenous-led groups, said in a statement that the Biden administration's approval makes it clear that its call for climate action and the protection of biodiversity is talk, not action. The only reasonable solution to the climate emergency is to deny new fossil fuel projects like Willow, said Akivak. Our fight has been long, and also it has only begun. We will continue to call for a stop to Willow because the lives of local people and future generations depend on it. Sovereign Inupiat for a Living Arctic was not alone in declaring that the struggle against the Willow Project is far from over. President Biden's approval of the Willow Project is a colossal and reprehensible stain on his environmental legacy, said Friends of the Earth campaigner Reina Garcia. Forcing a massive climate disaster project onto a region already plagued by climate change is nothing short of tragic for the planet and Alaska's communities. While the administration sides with big oil and exploitation of our public lands, we will keep fighting until this project is stopped dead in its tracks, Garcia added. 350.org's North America director, Jeff Ordauer, echoed that message. President Biden claims to prioritize climate justice, yet today's decision reveals that he is quick to cater to pressure from big oil over the needs of the people, said Ordauer. Biden absolutely has the power to reject all new fossil fuel projects, declare a climate emergency, and truly fight for both our people and our planet. Frontline communities and scientists have been clear that that is the only way forward unless we want to exacerbate climate harm and drive our world further into climate chaos. Rubber stamping more oil extraction in the fragile, rapidly warming Arctic betrays Biden's own climate promises, Ordauer continued. The fight to halt all new fossil fuel projects, including Willow, isn't over. Our movement is only growing, and will continue to fight for people and planet over profit. We will consider every appropriate tool in our continuing fight to stop the Willow climate bomb, said one advocate. So those were snippets from the 2 articles, and it's worth pointing out that Joe Biden's rhetoric while running for president during the Democratic primaries in regards to drilling on federal lands was very different than his current actions.
Number one, no more subsidies for fossil fuel industry, no more drilling on federal lands, no more drilling, including offshore, no ability for the oil industry to continue to drill, period. End.
So it's very understandable why Elise was so upset by Biden's decision to approve the Willow Project. This is not what he said he would do while campaigning, and this move figures to be disastrous for our climate. Elise says she's not done fighting, and hopefully others agree. Hopefully we will ultimately be able to find a way to stop the Willow Project. But this is a very, very bad look and move for the Biden administration. Biden's approval of the Willow Project is a climate betrayal, and a betrayal to all the young people in this country, and frankly, the world.